Hey, hey. Happy Tuesday to all of you guys. If you are on here, please get those likes up. Tag anybody out in this discussion who you think may find it interesting. This should be an interesting, hopefully interesting, informative topic. I want to give a special shout out to Red Pill Hustle for the $5 on the super chat. I see. Simple, they can't. So that must be in reference to the question, why don't divestors divest? So we're going to talk about it. We are going to talk about it. Again, real quick, if you are here, get those likes up. I also want to give a special thank you to those who have shown me some love on Cash App or Venmo. Really quickly, I want to see if I can do some special shout outs if I can find it. I want to give a special shout out to our Rogan. Thank you for the super chat. I saw that come through. Also for Game Dreamer, much love for the Cash App. I recently saw that come through. I appreciate all of you guys, all your contributions, you just being here. I appreciate you. And again, if you find this helpful, please share it, get the message out there so that we can continue to have conversations like this. So let's talk about it. Why don't divestors divest? Now, so here's the thing, right? This is a constant topic of discussion among women, especially within the YouTube space, the social media space, digital marketing space. This question of divesting. Here now, I think and I've said this before, I'll say this again. Generally speaking, I personally have zero problem with somebody dating or marrying outside of their ethnicity. I have zero problem with that. If a Black man happens to find a woman that he feels like, is on his willing to work with him, is easy to get along with, cooperative, she's pretty, you know what I mean? She's feminine, or whatever. She hits on his bells and whistles when she's not Black. Okay. Same with the Black woman. If she falls in love with somebody who happens to not share a complexion, I see zero problem with that. The interesting thing about it, though, is so often the topic of interracial relationships, the topic of interracial marriage, it's so charged. It is such a charged topic. And the way it's talked about, the way it's promoted, it makes it seem as if that is the majority, that's happening more and more often, or that's happening the majority of the time. I mean, even if we were to look at the media, the way things are being portrayed, especially if you go online, you look at the way things are being portrayed, it's as if this is the majority of what is happening. And what's interesting is, so y'all already know there's a double standard. Let's just call it what it is. There is a double standard, y'all. So if a Black man falls in love with a non-Black woman, he has hell to pay. It don't matter if this Black man could be mixed. This Black man could have a Asian mother or a white mother or whatever. If he falls in love with a non-Black female, he has snow bunny crisis. You know what I mean? He hates his mama. He doesn't love his mama. He don't love his people. So we know when Black men generally date or marry outside, he usually has hell to pay. Now on the flip side, when women decide to date and marry outside, there's usually not a negative connotation. We see it being celebrated all the time. We see it being celebrated on social media, online. So there is a double standard when it comes to interracial relationships. There is a huge double standard. Black women, when they decide to date and marry outside of their ethnicity, it's because they're expanding their options and they're going where they're loved and celebrated. The Black man decides to marry a non-Black female, it's because he hates his mom. So I think we're clear there. If you're on here, please get those likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. We're just talking a little bit about divesting and why don't divestors actually divest. So I'm just kind of laying just some groundwork of what is actually meaning or what's happening going on here. I see you mean divestors. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Generally, just in the Black community, y'all know there's double standards. When Black men do it, it's generally there's a negative connotation. When Black women do it, it's usually there's not as much negativity. Usually, it's because she's trying to, she's trying to go where she's loved, she's trying to go where she's celebrated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. On top of that, just side note, something that I also noticed is that biracials and preferences do not really apply to men. So, for example, for whatever reason, we as Black women, I think sometimes like to pretend that there is lighter skinned women or mixed women are a separate class. I don't understand why. If we look at historically, we know that at the end of the day, where the person is light or Black, maybe a lighter skinned person may have a certain set of privileges, but by and large, she was still a Black person, even if she had, the one drop rule applied. So it's like, we have always been treated as Black people, whether we're light or dark skin. But for whatever reason on YouTube or in these social media streets, whatever, there's this idea that lighter skinned Black women or biracial Black women are not Black. They're their own separate class and they're the preferences. So I see this term kind of going around that, Black men and their preferences and them not necessarily preferring a full blood Black woman, whatever that means. But what I find also interesting about this conversation is that this is, again, never applied to men. If a Black man is mixed, but he marries a non-Black woman, you already know she's Black. The preference, he's not a Black, that's mixed, that don't count. That doesn't apply to that Black man. If he is mixed and he's light-skinned, but he marries a Becky or he marries an Exotical, whatever, that is a full-blooded Black man. I can't think of the name of that guy. His name evades me, but this was a few weeks ago where it was like an athlete, an NBA player, an athlete that engaged or that proposed to his white girlfriend. And everybody, I saw all the butthurt. Everybody was just, social media streets was loud, right? And of course you kind of saw the typical, another good Black man gone, yada, 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 yada. And this, again, this same idea that here's a Black man that's just sold himself out because he's deciding to marry a Becky. This Black man was mixed, right? This Black man who's an athlete has a white mother. Nobody mentions that though. Because he's a Black man, it doesn't count. He's not considered a biracial. He's not considered a preference. He's Black. So again, I'm just making this point that we're seeing there's a double standard, right? Black women are allowed to do certain things when it comes to interracial dating or marrying, that Black women are allowed to do certain things that Black men are not allowed to do. Or when they do it, they face a certain set of consequences. So I just wanted to kind of set the record straight there. Or, you guys probably already know this, but I wanted to reiterate that we do not have consistent standards when it comes to who decides to date and marry out. If you're on here, please get those likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. You said light-skinned women ain't Black unless they're Meghan Markle. Right. So that's what I'm saying. This idea picks and choose, but a Black man, it don't matter how light he is. It don't matter if his mom is white or whatever. He's a Black man, especially if he marries a Becky. Oh, that's a Black man. He's going to be held to a Black man's standards. But for a Black woman, the preferences and the mixed and exoticals, that all changes based upon the preference. I see Al Broken with the $20 in the super chat. So why am I so? What is this all about? Y'all follow me. I'm kind of going somewhere here. So we've established that there is not a consistent standard when it comes to dating and marrying outside. We've established that. You guys know this. You guys have seen this. I think the bigger question that I have is, so if there is such a push, if there's this big conversation that, hey, at the end of the day, women, Black women, we need to expand our options. We need to look elsewhere. We need to continue to go where we're loved and celebrated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How often are we actually able to do this? Let's start there. What is the rate? If the conversation or if the argument is that, hey, you can expand your options, woman of color, beautiful Black woman, whatever, you can expand your options if you decide to marry out. How often is that actually happening? That was my first question. So we actually did some numbers. We did some numbers on this. And what I actually found was that those African-American women who are actually successfully able to divest, that is, let me see, to be specific. So, okay. White men marry Black women at less than 1% rate. We talked about this about a week ago. I put this on the community tab. If you guys did not see this, just to be clear, white men currently, or this is based upon the information that we pulled from the U.S. Census Bureau, white men who marry Black women at a rate of less than 1%. Now, how about Asian men? Okay, so Asian men marry Black women at a rate of 0.22%. 0.22% Asian men marry Black women. Now, as far as Hispanic men who actually marry Black women, that is about 1%. So this is based upon the numbers that we actually pulled today from the U.S. Census Bureau. So for those of you who desire, if the conversation is that, okay, Black women, we are wanting to expand our options, and these different ethnic groups are pretty much marrying us at a rate of less than 1%. I guess my first question is, so where are we expanding to? Where are we going? Because I don't know that 1% is really, that's not really hitting on nothing. It's not really hitting on nothing, especially if within the Black community, Black men still are actually who marry marrying men at more than 80%. So where are we actually divesting to? If, like I said, white men marry us at less than 1%, Asian men marrying us at 0.22%, and then Hispanic men are marrying us at less than 1%. Now, listen, marriage is different than dating. I think sometimes what happens is we forget that just because a guy maybe will take you out or will hang around with you or will engage with you, whatever, that's different than you actually taking on his last name, you taking on his legacy, you carrying his kids, you taking on his inheritance. That's totally different. So marriage is different than dating. So there are guys out there who will engage, they will date, they will marry, they will have fun with a Black woman or even a woman outside of her ethnicity, but they know in the back of their head when it comes to settling down, when it comes to actually marrying, or when it comes to, whatever, they actually are going to choose someone within their ethnic group. Some people still think like that. So you said that's nothing. I want to give a special shout out to Eugene Steele for the 10 on the super chat. I see you there. If you are here, please get those likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. We're talking about why don't divestors divest? So I see Eugene there. So I see, do divestors, let me see, think that the other races do not hear about their hatred of their race? Do those other races not think that those divestors are using them to escape from their problems? That's a really, really, really good question. That's a really, really good question. Really good question. So, okay, so here we're at. So divestors, what we're seeing, those who are able to successfully divest, we're seeing it's a rate of about 1% or less across all ethnic groups. At least this is according to the U.S. Census Bureau that we pulled literally today. Again, it's less than 1% than white men, less than 1% for Asian men, less than 1% for Hispanic men. So the rate at which we are actually able to successfully divest as African-American women is pretty low. Now, we know for men, it's a little bit different. While there are harsher stipulations, I guess socially speaking, like I said, if a black man decides to marry outside of his race, he's going to get called all kind of names, and he's going to be completely canceled from black women. It just is what it is. It don't matter how hard he works, he's going to be canceled. Even with that, black men, I think they marry outside of their race. Last I checked, at about a rate of 15%. I think 85% of black men marry black women. The rest are obviously marrying others. So that's about 15%. So they are successfully able to marry, they're successfully able to divest more. But even with that, you guys, even if you look at it on both ends, we're still not really marrying out that significantly. We're just not marrying out that significantly. We're just not doing it. Special shout out to Raw with the $50 super chat. That is, I see. Would Destiny Child Soldier be accepted by the white community? 3 beautiful white girls telling young white boys and men that if your status ain't hood, I'm not checking for you. Better be street if you looking at me like, really? Just sad. Just sad. So that's a really good point. That is a really good point. So y'all, when we actually look at the numbers, when we look at the numbers of who is able to successfully divest, it's a pretty small percentage within the black community. So if we're going to say that we're trying to divest because we're expanding our options, we're actually more likely to get married if we continue to try to just marry within black men. Because the black men right now are the most likely to marry us. It just is what it is. It just is what it is. So with that said, why I feel like there is a really big push, and there is this big consistent argument that black women are going to be treated better, they're going to be accepted more, they're going to have easier lives if they date and marry out. If that is the case, then why is it not happening at a higher rate, y'all? Why, with there being such campaignings, right, and such a desire, and I feel like in sometimes even a sense of competition, why are we not seeing more interracial marriages for black women? Why are divestors actually not divesting? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but like I said, if the idea is I'm going to divest to Brad to expand my options, and Brad is going to marry you at a rate of less than 1%, that's how likely he is to marry you. That's not a pretty good likelihood. It's not. Now, again, let me be clear. Marry whoever you want to marry, love whoever you want to marry. I'm not one to tell anybody that they should or shouldn't love who they love. That's really not my thing, because I feel like people at the end of the day are people. You can find a healthy, beautiful black man that will love you, and you can find somebody outside of the group that can love you too. Now, there are going to be certain challenges associated with that if you go outside your ethnic group, but it's like marry who you marry. But what we really, I think, have to start to do is challenge some of these popular notions. It's being said that, oh, black men are marrying all these exoticals, and more black men are marrying all these, white women, and they're marrying these preferences, yada, 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 yada. And at best, last I checked, now it may have changed a little bit, but it probably hasn't changed significantly. It's like we have a good maybe 15% of all black men, right, who are marrying and dating non-black women. It's a good 15% if we look at the overall general population within Black America. So to me, that is not a significant amount in order to create such a big fuss that says that, oh, Black men are just disloyal and not protecting, right? Also, we see the percentage of Black women who are marrying is incredibly low when we go across the different ethnic groups. It's incredibly low. So it also doesn't make sense for us to go around and talk about that. Hey, if you decide to just don't marry or date Black men anymore, only focus on marrying non-white, non-Black men, you're going to expand your options. That's unrealistic because the numbers are telling us that that's not the case. Brad will marry you at less than 1%. You know what I mean? A Hispanic man will marry you at a rate of about 1% or less. An Asian man is going to marry at a rate of about 0.22%. So how are you expanding your options? It's not happening. It's not happening. So, like I said, I think these narratives, they're coming from somewhere. And they're not based upon fact. They're not based upon actual reality. And I know sometimes it's popular to push certain ideas because, it gets, you can get higher clicks. Like I've even seen certain male content creators push this idea that like, oh, more and more Black men are seeking out non-white women or non-Black women, and more Black men or a larger group of Black men are expanding their options. And I'm like, okay, yes, maybe, but and correct me if I'm wrong, I just don't think it's that significant for us to be trying to fearmonger. I think the bigger issue is that, like, why are we pushing these ideas that are actually not based upon fact? And especially for divestors right now, who I feel like are really, really pushing, encouraging Black women, modern Black women right now to leave their community, to divest their community. Why are they not able to do it successfully? And secondly, why are so many divestor-focused content really geared towards Black men and towards Black people in particular? Because here's the thing, if you're going to successfully divest, then that means that you are now leaving your community and you are now integrating yourself into another community. So what I always find really interesting is how there's a lot of different divestor related content that is still focused on Black culture. And I'm like, hey, let's say you're a divestor and your desire is to marry a I don't know, a Puerto Rican man or a Mexican man or a Chinese man. I would think that your focus would now be learning about Chinese culture, maybe even learning the Chinese language, maybe understanding, okay, what are the different do's and don'ts? Like what are mannerisms? Like really trying to integrate yourself in that culture so that you can officially divest and integrate into that which you are now claiming you want to be a part of. But what I see, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, what I really see is while there is this push that says, hey, Black woman, you should actually divest, very few are actually able to do it based upon the percentages that we just discussed. And secondly, the emphasis continues to be how Black men or Black community is either not good enough or Black men are not doing their part. And I'm like, if you're actually still talking about the community, then you're not divested. Divesting is actually leaving that community. You're no longer interested in it. You're no longer focusing on it. You're not talking about politics. You're not talking about African politics, for that matter, or even politics to do with Black America or how Black men are treating their women. That doesn't concern you. You've now divested. So I just think we have a lot of ideas that are just honestly just based upon nonsense. They're just based upon nonsense. And what it reveals to me is a lack of I don't know if it's lack of self-awareness, maybe a lack of just self-love. It's just a whole bunch of different things, but there's a lot of things out there that just don't really make sense. They don't really make logical sense to me. And, I want to hear from you guys on why do you think, with there being such a push and with there being such a campaigning, if you will, right? We're being encouraged every single day. Even Rashida Strober. Shout out to Rashida Strober, the dark skin activist. She did a live a few days ago, I think, where she was talking about how different women were emailing her and saying, look, you just need to divest and marry you a Black man. Marry you a Brad. You need to divest from the Black community and just find a white guy. She said there's different women who emailed her this. And she's just like, what are you talking about? So like I said, if that is such a popular idea that we are pushing for, why are so many of us unable to reach those goals? Why? Why are so many Black women actually unable to successfully divest? If that is what we say that we want, if that's what we say we need, why is it not happening? Listen, I have friends of mine who have married, Black women I know who have married white guys who have married outside of their ethnic group. Now, it doesn't mean their life is perfect. It doesn't mean they don't have struggles. So it's like, I know those people who are out there who are doing it, but I also know those women are a minority when we're looking at the overall general population. And I think sometimes this can maybe speak to a bigger issue, it can speak to a bigger problem, or maybe something that we're actually not really looking at. The reality is, while there's huge discussion around Black women and how they should divest because that's going to expand their options, what we're finding is that if you do divest, then your options go down a lot lower. Like I said, you're more likely to find love within your community. And if the reason you're divesting is because you actually cannot get along with people in your community, then that probably speaks to something maybe deeper that's going on. But those are just my thoughts. Y'all, those are just my thoughts. I'd like to hear from you. Why are divestors, why don't they divest? Why are they actually not getting married at the rates that they desire to, or say they desire to? And why are they actually not divesting or leaving the Black community? Why isn't there a push on how to teach these women who desire to marry out? Why isn't there a push to teach them on how to integrate into those different communities? I'd like to hear from you guys. I'd like to hear from you guys. Now, if I'm misunderstanding something, if I am misinterpreting something, let me know. I would love to hear from you. So I'm going to drop a link here. We have a few minutes. We have a few minutes, y'all, to chat. If you guys have any things to say, or if you have any content, if you have any, let me see, let's share it here. So let me know. Let me know why are we not seeing more interracial marriages among Black women? Which is really the question. If that's something to be desired, if that's something that's being pushed, why aren't we seeing it happening at a higher rate? Let's see. Hey there. How's it going?
What's going on, Shay?
So what do you
What's
think?
new? Okay, so it's simple. I think Black women are coveting the top 20% white women's position. This is about being upper middle class white women. The reason why it's not working is because, simply put, non-Black men are too damn racist, especially white men. It's that simple. It's not about Black women's loyalty. They could throw a fit all they want. The media is low-key trying to push this, but white men are just too damn racist. I'm sorry, Black women. Too many. This goes to the video you made a couple weeks ago about only 1% of white men marrying Black women or something like that. So that goes to that. Like, if Black women are becoming more educated, they're in PWIs and HBCUs, they're all over these positions that should allow them to be able to marry white men in significant number, primarily white men, and it's just not happening, right?
Yeah.
So those men are just too damn racist, and I'm sorry, but Black women are gonna have that want to divest are gonna have to address that part of it. You could be disloyal as you want. That don't mean those white dudes are checking. It's that simple.
Well, you know what? I actually, I think you hit the nail on the head. What's not, and I'm actually thinking about maybe addressing this in a later video or live stream, but it's like, what's not really being talked about is right now there is a real increase in far right WS activity. And there's been a polarizing, especially over the last few years with COVID and just the way the economy has been going and politics. And so things have been polarized economically, racially, tensions are high. And so while there are certainly people out there who are open-minded and are open to it, the reality is there is a large majority of those who are not. And whether they're closet racist or they are public, it is very much a real thing. And I feel like, although I'm not a divester, I feel like it's disingenuous, really, and it's unhealthy to promote an interracial setup without addressing the real ramifications of what that could mean. For example, one of my family members, she's actually mixed, but she married a white man, and she's very, very, very open about the different challenges that they have faced and still face. She's talking about race constantly, doing different,
it's a weird form of escapism, Che. That's why you don't get any type of realism coming from that side, right? Like, we got dark-skinned sisters, like you mentioned, Rashida Strober, that they'll speak about colorism in the Black community at nauseum, and then they'll advocate for like dating South Asian men. Like, are you serious? You're talking about
No,
colorism over here?
I'll speak for she is not a
No,
diverse.
no, no. I'm not saying her. I'm saying
Okay.
like you'll have dark skinned sisters that talk about the colorism in the Black community, which we'll acknowledge is a thing, but then advocate for like Black women to marry non-Black men, especially like Latinos or South Asians. And I'm like, are you serious? I mean, you're on crack. You got to be on some type of drug if you think black colorism in the Black American community got anything on like South Asians or Latinos and their colorism.
It's real.
You know, but it's escapism at the end of the day. It's everybody's feeling the pinch, you know, where we're kind of still smack dab in the middle of this COVID stuff. People are feeling the pinch, and you would think it would make more people more realistic about what's going on in the world, but in actuality, a lot of sisters are on some delusional shit. And I think divesting is just their form of escapism. You know, it's I gotta get out of this. I gotta get out of air quotes Blackistan. I gotta find my way out of this foolishness, and this is what they think is gonna work.
I do agree that sometimes escapism. I mean, you hit in so many different points, and I appreciate you calling. I have actually a few other callers, so I want to.
All right, have a good night.
Yeah, you have a good night. But there's a few of the callers I'm gonna let on, but I think he hit on a great point, right? Where, and this is just my opinion. I don't know. I think sometimes, okay, we talk about mental health and just America, period, but especially in the Black community, mental health is a real thing. Mental health issues, challenges, spiritual issues, it's a real thing. And you know what I'm learning even now is that if you weren't given the proper tools, or you don't know how to properly address certain emotions, properly address certain ideas, you feel overwhelmed or whatever. If you don't handle those things healthily, then it can cause you to get into all kinds of unhealthy activity. And I think to his earlier point, I think there is a real group of us out there who just are overwhelmed by reality and just don't know how to handle it. And instead of facing those different things, you know what I mean? Having those hard discussions, looking really in the mirror and having a truthful look, the reality itself is so painful that focusing or desiring on this thing over here, or, you know, looking at that fantasy over there, like that's almost easier to accept, or that's easier to hope for versus actually living out your own reality. So I do think there's women out there right now where escapism is the best way they know how to survive and exist in a society right now that is not necessarily the nicest and that is not necessarily the easiest. But those are just, you know, that's just my opinion. You know, that is just my opinion. Okay. How's it going?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So, I mean, what do you think? Why don't divestors divest? Why isn't there a higher rate of, you know, African American women who are successfully able to maybe marry out, or I don't know. I mean, what do you think about that?
So, in going over this, and I actually talked with Phil from the Interracial, and I liked the interview you did with him, by the way,
Okay.
a couple of weeks back. So, thank you for all what you do. But in going over this, I think what I've been able to garner, and just by seeing different channels, it doesn't matter who it is or the topics covered, I've attributed to, you know, you hit the nail on the head. It's definitely some of these, it's hard for me to call them sisters, but some of these ladies, I think, sincerely do need therapy. But it really jugs down to the fact that I think most of them use it as a scare tactic to garner attention. So it's almost like...
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I think there are some people out there at the end of the day who are just making money off the idea. They don't really believe it, you're saying, but they just are just trying to get attention so that they get some more money in the bank. Is that what you're saying?
It's not just about the monetary thing, but it's just about the individuals who go about doing it. Because what I noticed is that when they say this, and, you know, there's some in your chat even that are upping it, especially when they come out and they come and say they're going to do it. And when they're asked questions and they're pressed about it, it's more that, oh, I'm getting attention. Let me just keep saying this. And I think it's one of those things where it's almost like a trigger point for them. They think it's going to trigger the rest of the community to say, don't do it, don't do it. But the fact is, if we look at the numbers and we break things down, there's a couple of things I think they should understand. Most men of any group, doesn't matter how nice and kind they are, they're not going to accept children of another race. Mm. So that already rules out some of them who may say this. If you have children out of wedlock, especially even if you've been divorced, you're already ruled out from the conversation, because they're just not going to take over another man's child. They just simply won't. They don't want to deal with the issues. They don't want to deal with the drama. They don't want to deal with anything else that comes with it. Mm-hmm. And then the other factor that you got to realize that rules out some of these women who may say this is, if you're not overweight, and I think you said this in your live a couple of days ago, Black men are the most body positive demographic of any man. By far. So if you take white men's women who are amongst the skinniest, and mixed out with Asian, who are the two women that white men do go for? It's mostly Asian women, mm-hmm. and their own women. And in fact, white men, Asian women, they're the number one interracial dynamic, period. So, yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm listening.
No, so if we really break these things down, and you see that, and you just take the average white man, white woman, Asian woman, and you just put their body typing in your vision, that doesn't coincide with what they go with. Especially if, on average, most of our women are obese or overweight, And when I'm saying obese, I'm saying obese on the BMI metric. So I think these things, in looking at it, and then, not using your own natural sum. And again, I don't want to say this is all. This isn't someone like you who, I think if she wanted to, could easily do it. These are the rank and file typical Black women that are in America. So I think these things need to be dissected and dived into. And like I said, it's just a scare tactic. They know they can't do it because, again, the minute you're with someone, and if they do have any, white supremacist type vibes or such, you're going to sense that. And it really takes the lowest of the low and a real self-hating person to put up with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you calling on and sharing your perspective.
Thank you for having me.
All right. You have a good one.
You too. Thank you.
So he made, I think, some really good points where, there's very rarely, I think, is it just one thing, or is it just one particular reason, right? I think, unfortunately, right now, what we fail to remember is that our reputation precedes us, for better or for worse. And unfortunately, we do not have a reputation for being the most feminine, if you will, or for being the easiest to get along. We have a bad reputation when it comes to relationships. I'm not saying that's fair, and I'm not saying that's right. And I, more than anyone, would love to see that change. And I would love to see the image of just Black women in particular, just restored. But right now, we do not have that reputation. So, whether that's a conscious or subconscious thing, I'm sure men outside of the Black community are looking at that and they're like, they're thinking about that. And of course, you add to that, racism is a real thing. This is another thing I posted a few days ago, where a woman was just like, hey, my white boyfriend basically told me, yeah, I'm scared to marry you because if I do, I'll lose my inheritance. This is a Black woman. And she's like, you know what? I'm not even mad at it. And that is a real thing. We can act like this doesn't happen. We can push divesting and swirling all we want and overlook the real ramifications, or overlook the reality of what that means today. But what that does mean today for certain people is that, like, hey, yeah, you're the person that you want may be put in a position where he has to choose between you and his inheritance. And most people will just take their inheritance and then somebody else that find somebody else that will be easier to get along with in society and within life. Most people will do that. And so, like, those are the real things. And then you take to that also just, basic body preferences. I've heard that, everything from Black women prefer the Beckys of the world, and they prefer the non-white, non-Black women, all the different stuff. And when we just know, based upon pure scientific evidence, even if you look at the marriage rate, that's not true. Most men prefer women within their community. It's always been like that. So it's just certainly not true. So you have to take into account too, there are generally different preferences within ethnicities. Within the Black community, we generally prefer curvier women. It's just, we can argue back and forth, but most Black men will prefer a woman with some booty and some thighs and some hips. They're not looking for those sticks. You know what I mean? Even if you look at those high value men, even if she is skinny, they want it in the right places. That's just a part of Black culture. In other cultures, that's not always it. Maybe a lean build or a very small, just frail frame is preferential. So it's just like all these different components that I think lead to the reality that there is just many of us who are just not able to successfully divest. Now, if there is a divester in here, I see some in the comments. You guys are certainly welcome to call in. I have the link posted as always, because I share just my thoughts on the matter, but I don't pretend to be an expert at all. Like I said, I'm not a divester, I'm not a swirler, so I do not pretend to be an expert. So I am always open and willing to talk to any of you lovely ladies who love to be in the comment section. You're always welcome to call up. Looks like I do have a few more callers. Let's see.
That's that white privilege.
Yeah, man.
Feel like
I know that shit pissed you off, bro. I ain't wrong.
Because he was in the wrong.
Yeah.
And see, this
Oh.
Okay, so I don't know what's going on there, but we're going to move on. Again, you guys are more than welcome to call in, but let's try to keep the cussing to 0. I try to keep this stuff family friendly. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm fine. All I have to contribute to this is I've been following the this conversation for a long time. Well, kind of what you want to call the gender war, whatever. It really started on Black Planet, and there was these websites called Hello Beautiful and stuff like that, and they used to post these articles about Black men being more in prison than in college, all this stuff. So what I noticed is how it evolved.
Yeah.
What happened is people like yourself, it was men at first, but people like yourself would hear these arguments and break them down and disprove them, right? And the divestment movement is just another argument against Black men. That's all it is. It doesn't really exist. It's not about finding better for Black women. It's nothing like that. It's just we can't prove that they're unsuccessful anymore. We can't prove that they're gay anymore because all the statistics go against that. So let's talk about colorism, something you can't prove. You know what I mean? Let's talk about getting facts that don't make sense, that Black men are more violent towards Black women when we interact with them more. You know, so that's where it's all about. Like, they don't care about, like, first of all, in order to divest, you had to at some point invest it, right? A lot of these women, they really never invested in the Black community. Black men are the majority of people who invest in the Black community, right? But they use that as an argument to say, we've given everything we have to Black men and they don't appreciate it, so let's go get a Brad, right?
Okay.
And that was the first argument a couple years ago. And then they went out and they tried to get Brad and it failed, so now it turned into open your options. Meaning, we can't get Brad like we thought we could, so let's open our options and aim for a Brad, and if we miss, we'll get a Black man. We'll settle for that eventually or whatever. You know what I mean? So all of this divestment conversation, it's really just a feminist argument.
Okay.
Against. Right. That's all I really have to
All right. No, I appreciate you calling in. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
All right, you take care.
You too.
Okay, so we have basically changing the goalpost. It was, this one thing, that one thing was proven wrong. Then it was okay. Now it's this one thing, that one thing was disproven. So basically, we're just continuing to kind of run around in circles and have this conversation. Listen, as I said before, people should be able to, especially live in a free country. Now that's up for debate, but in theory, we live in a free country, so people are free to marry whoever they want to marry. Now, but that actually means that a person has to marry you. Now, I will say this. Another thing that I want to mention is that at the end of the day, men are the ones who control access to marriage. And unless there's more women who I think are willing to get down on their knee and propose to a man, whether he be within their ethnic group or outside of their ethnic group, at the end of the day, we as women, we are waiting for men to propose. So even if we want to expand it, let's say hypothetically, I'm not, pretend I'm not married. I'm like, okay, I want to marry Korean men. So I put out dating apps and I, start listening to K-pop or whatever and just start doing what I can, trying to make myself available to Korean men. At the end of the day, if a Korean man does not get down on his knees and propose to me, then what's going to happen? So I think we as women, even this idea of us being to expand our options, I think is somewhat of a fallacy because our options are what they are. Now, we can perhaps do what we can to maybe make ourselves more attractive or more appealing. You know what I mean? Like I said, if you have a very closed, mean look when you go out, or maybe if you dress yourself really, really down, or if we can do things to make ourselves seem as if we're unavailable. And so with that, we can also do things to make ourselves seem more available, make ourselves seem more presentable, or make ourselves seem more open maybe to relationships. But apart from that, there's not much we as women can do to expand our options because we don't control options to marriage. We don't control access to marriage. And again, the only reason I think we'll be able to change that is if by and large, we as women accept that we are willing to now get down on our knee, find the engagement ring, propose to the man of our dreams, maybe plan the wedding, plan the whole engagement process, whatever. If we're willing to do that, then okay, we can talk about expanding our options. If more Black women are maybe willing to propose to a white man or to an Asian man or to an Indian man or whoever, then okay, maybe we're talking. But apart from that, then it's I think we're hoping and we can do different things to try to get their approval. But if they're just not doing it, then they're just not doing it. And I do think, it's really important to perhaps consider why. If the idea is that marrying out is going to expand our options, but in fact, when you actually marry out, you decrease your options if you limit it to just that, then it's okay, then what's going on? Why aren't these men that we say that, will treat us better or whatever, why aren't they choosing us? Why aren't they choosing us at the rate that we think we deserve? So, those are just some thoughts. I also want to give a special shout out to Crimson Cure. Thanks for stopping in. It's always a pleasure to have you. Also, if you guys are here, y'all get those likes up. Please get those likes up. Likes are free. I have a few more minutes if anybody would like to call in. I will share the link here. What's so funny? I'm like I said, I do not bite. It's so interesting how I have lovely ladies in the chat room who never decide to call in. That's curious, but it's okay. It's okay. So we have a few more minutes if anyone wants to hop on. But like I said, if those of you guys who joined late, I'll kind of give you guys a quick recap. So we discussed that basically, as far as the possibility, the likelihood of an African American woman or a Black woman actually divesting, the likelihood of her being able to do it is, as it stands today, white men marry Black women at a rate of less than 1%. This is according to the U.S. Census Bureau. We pulled these numbers today, right before I did this live. So white men marry Black women at a rate of less than 1%. Okay. Asian men marry Black women at a rate of 0.22%. 0.22% Asian men marry Black women. Hispanic men marry Black women at a rate of about 1%. So while we might see a mixing, we might see, different dating, playing around. We certainly see a ton of it on media and different shows. The reality of, and the likelihood that men of other groups are going to highly increase our marriage rate as Black women, that's just completely disproven. It is just disproven It is just disproven on so many different levels, y'all. Like I said, white men less than 1%, Asian men less than 1%, Hispanic men less than 1%. So, like I said, why is it so low? Why is this so low? If it's obvious that we as Black women in some cases are almost pleading, sometimes it seems like we are pleading for this. Why is it happening on such a low level? And so that's what we've been talking about. I've been getting your guys' different perspective on it. I do want to give a special shout out to Godson for the $5 on the super chat. Let me see. I hope Black men. Okay, it looks like it went away. But okay, so I hope Black men and women can just date without talking down on Black people. Right. No, like, okay, let's just know that. Okay, right. That's what I'm saying. Like, y'all, here is the thing. You know, date whoever you want to date, marry whoever you want to marry. That is my thing. But please do not do it while spreading lies. Because first off, if we promote the idea that a Black woman is going to be safer by being in a white environment or with a white man, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Do you know history? Have you watched the news? How many Black women just this year have been headlined for being killed, for being abused by their non-Black counterparts? We can't act as if violence does not exist. You can't escape this world. That is dangerous. It is incredibly dangerous to say that you're going to escape your problems just by going to somebody that doesn't look like you. That is fantasy. That is fantasy, and that is dangerous. And that, unfortunately, is why there's some women out there today who find themselves in very dangerous situations and sometimes find themselves even dead. I'm starting to see this term falling around, divesters. And I know that's not what they're trying to promote, of course. But it happens. Literally, it happens. World Talk Beyond, and she just did a lot. I think it was like maybe a day or two where she talked about this, and she's like, "Hey, are we responsible? Are we responsible for oh gosh, I'm so bad with her. I won't pull it. I was actually live on this too. That it was a young African American woman, right? Who, now we don't know the whole situation. We didn't know if she was dating this dude, but a young, beautiful African American woman. Let's see. Yeah, Lauren Smith Fields. I did a live on this recently. Lauren Smith Fields. And she's talking about like, hey, okay, so are we responsible for this? Now, I didn't listen to the whole thing. I heard reference to it and I saw a few minutes. But again, it's this whole idea of like how we closed our eyes so much that we believe that we're just safe here, that it's escape from Blackistan, and then you're going to be in Pleasantville, and life is going to be perfect. Like what? It's like, what world do you live in? Even white women don't live perfect. Even white women have incredible abuse and incredible trauma that they walk through. If that wasn't the case, feminism would have never started. So I'm like, we hold on to these ideas, and they're not based upon fact, and they're not based upon reality. And honestly, I think sometimes they just speak to different, spiritual, psychological issues, sometimes trauma, which is something that I think I do want to talk a little bit more later on this year, because it is a real thing. It is a real thing. Shout out to Crimson Kier. I like your approach on the subject. I do certainly appreciate the love and the support from somebody like you, who I know is talks real on this stuff. But that's what I'm saying. We do ourselves no good. We do ourselves no good when we just push ideas and we don't really think through it, and we don't really actually know what's going on. So y'all, like I said, what we see is other men just aren't marrying us like that, period. If you are a woman where you just happen to find somebody and he decides to marry you and he's not outside of your race, okay, good for you. Now, don't go around spreading hate and acting like your life is perfect, because trust me, it's not. But by and large, most Black women are not going to live out that reality today. Maybe that'll change decades down the line, who knows? But as it stands today, most African American women are not going to have the reality of, first of all, being married, period. And then if they are married, being married to somebody of a different ethnicity. That's just not going to happen. This is based upon the stats. Now, with that, like I said, whether it happens or doesn't happen, I think the bigger issue is it is really bad when we promote self-hating ideas, like I said, that are not based upon any facts. And another reason I think it's really dangerous is because, ladies, we cannot act like we cannot escape our problems. We should not escape our problems. We should not escape our problems. And I think, as one of the callers made mention to earlier today, what's really happening, I think at the core, is that some of us just are overwhelmed with reality and we're overwhelmed with life, right? Maybe we are upset at the fact that we have all these mouths to feed. We have, some child support, baby daddy issues, whatever it may be. We're upset about that. Maybe the guy that we liked didn't like us back. Maybe he chose another girl. Maybe that happened to us a few times. Maybe we were overlooked. Maybe we didn't get the attention we wanted from dudes. We didn't get the attention we wanted from our dad. Maybe we don't know our dad. Maybe we wish we were white. Maybe we wish we were that exotical Latina that seemed to get all the attention at school. All these things, I think, that motivate us to just hate ourselves and motivate us sometimes to just not want to be who God created us to be. And instead of us dealing with those issues, and instead of us looking in the mirror and saying, I don't like myself. And because I don't like myself, I continue to choose people and I continue to put myself in situations where I am treated badly. Instead of us saying that, then we blame it on somebody else. And we say, oh, it's his idea. It's men's fault. Or it's black men's fault. Oh, it's that person's fault. If only I got this. If only I could just live in a white neighborhood. Listen, because I saw a few comments in there talking about being in a white neighborhood. I lived in a white neighborhood. I lived in a gated community, $1 million gated community. They don't blast that around, you know what I mean? But it's like growing up and, being like when I was did all that. So I know what it means to be in a white environment. Even to this day, surrounded by white people. That doesn't mean things don't exist. There was just a robbery just the other day. Doesn't mean you don't get stares. It doesn't mean like life is just perfect. If you heard the kinds of conversations I had with my white friends, with my Asian friend, people, they have pain, they have struggle, they have addiction, they have abuse. Some of them have sexual trauma they're trying to deal through. Some of them have violence, DV. These are non-Black women living in white neighborhoods. Husbands cheating on them, feeling depressed on like real life. And all these ideas do, I think, sometimes is just, they just push, I think, distracting ideas that get us nowhere. And they keep us from actually getting to the root problem, which is, I think, sometimes we just don't love who God created us to be. We just don't love who God created us to be. Some of us, we just hate ourselves. And instead of us facing that, we would rather go through far lengths to try to make sure we don't exist the next generation moving forward. Because what you don't understand, if we continue in one instance to complain about the women who don't look like us, but we also desire to divest and create those women who don't look like us, to create those mixed babies, what that eventually leads to is a genocide of Black men and Black women. That's essentially what you're promoting. And like I said, that's not coming from a place of self-love. That's not coming from a place of acceptance. So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think, again, marrying and dating whoever you is, that's not the issue to me, but I think it is an issue to me, really. When we just promote these ideas as if they have no consequences. Also, by the way, I see some of you lovely ladies in the comment section. If you're more than welcome to call in. I really do not bite, I promise. Have you ever seen me yell at anybody? Have you ever seen me cuss at anybody? It's so funny. I see these passionate. I mean, I'm seeing like paragraphs. I can't even read through all of them. It's going so fast. No one wants to call in, but that's okay. That's okay. He said they believe the grass. Yeah, and it's really not. The grass is not greener on the other side. It's not, people. It's not. Ugh. We have years and years of evidence to show that. To show that. I think, and this is why, I mentioned before, I'm gonna, want to talk a little bit more about health later on, because I think it's often understated. I could say honestly, I'll speak to myself as a Black woman who grew up in a predominantly white environments. There are some environments I run because we moved around a lot, but there's some environments where it was more mixed, and there are some where it's just like, no, I am the token. So of course there were times where I judged myself, looked at my body, looked at my skin, looked at my hair, times where I wanted to be lighter, times where I wondered, why was I made like this? Times where I looked at my hair and different things and were like, went through all that, which is really common, unfortunately, when you go in an environment and you don't see yourself reflected, or you don't see who you are being celebrated. So it's like, I understand that. And it's taken me years really to like understand, no, like God didn't make a mistake, and really embracing who I am on all levels, right? There's a spiritual level to that, emotionally and physically, knowing God didn't make a mistake. God loves me for who I am. God loves how I look. God loves all people. God loves Black men, right? For those who say Black men are the devil, Black men are destinies, God loves Black men. You know what I mean? God loves Black women. Like, God loves everybody. And understanding that and seeing people have value. And then when people don't know they have value, when they're broken or where they are psychologically sick, whatever it may be, then they do things to destroy themselves. Then they act in a way that's devilish. You know what I mean? But it's not because they don't have value. It's not because they don't have worth. It's not because they don't have potential to do better. It's just many of us are just broken. We're just broken. And we're doing all these things based upon the fact that we just simply do not know who we are, and we don't know who God created us to be. We don't know what we actually could be if we allow God to live inside of us. But I don't want to get a tangent here. But comments being censored. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot going on here. But anyways, y'all. I think we pretty much covered off that most of us just are not actually, we're not getting the results that we want. And if we actually do really desire those results, then we should talk about why are we getting the results that we want and what should we do to get to that point. I see Sade Melanin popping. Thanks for always sticking up for us. I see SYSBM stop entertaining rubbish women. I see if Black women want to go, let them leave. No, that's facts. Black love. No, and that's the thing about it. If you want to go, definitely go. Like, go. Ain't nobody's holding you back. But if you're going to go, then go. Don't talk about divesting, then you spend every 15 seconds talking about Tyrone. That's weird to me. I'm like, if you're really divested, then why are these Black men on your mouth? But that goes back to, I think, the dude's point earlier. Real divested women, I think, actually just divest. Like the women that I know who dated and married out, I don't hear them hating on Black men. They're just like, they're legitimately just living their life. They're having kids, whatever, or they're, women who've actually really married out. They're just living their life. They're not over here like, oh, I'm not, protected, and these Black men just over here with these preferences and all these. But they're just living their life because they're living their life, because they've actually divested, or they've actually decided to, they're in their community doing their thing. So to me, I think who are actually about it, they're doing it. Sometimes, to gentleman's earlier point, sometimes women just want attention. They just do, y'all. So divestors say leave because Black men are weak, broke, and conquered. But if Black men had the status, money, and patriarchy power white women have, Black women would be our biggest oppressors. Yikes. Whew. Shout out to the super chat there. I see Jay Daniels on the super chat. If Pookie hurts a Black woman, he goes to jail. If Brad hurts a Black woman, he's just a nice guy. Facts, y'all. Did y'all hear that? Y'all heard that situation? I did a thing on that the other day where the other day where we already know it's Lauren Smith. I hate messing up people's names, and I'm bad at remembering names. Yeah, Lauren Smith Fields, beautiful Black woman. We don't even know the situation. We don't know how they met it. We just know he was found in her this older white gentleman was found in the apartment of this young Black woman. She was dead. He was never investigated. You know what I mean? He was never questioned. He wasn't detained. They're just like, oh, he's a nice gentleman. So they let him go. Who does that? That would not have happened if that was a black man. That would not have happened, or really a man of any other race. Let's just be honest. Would not have happened. So, y'all. Okay, yeah, y'all got me tired over here. Okay, I got another caller, and then I think I'm gonna wrap this up because I'm getting tired. And it's dinner time. Hey there.
Oh, were you gonna leave? I didn't want to
No,
hold you
sorry.
up.
You might be my final call. We wrapping it up.
Okay. Yeah, so I feel like I'm getting a level of expertise when it comes to divestors. I was considering writing a blog about it a while back, but they just ended up not being ended up not working out. But there's a lot of hurt in that community, like deep hurt.
Okay.
And I'm still a member to several of the channels in that sphere, in that divestment sphere. And selfishly, for selfish reasons, I want this one black man to become the king of the divestment. I think there's something poetic about that. But really, what they need is therapy. And they kind of beat around the bush, and they look for a lot of their problems with black men or black people, and it's not healthy. They almost everything that they look in life, something non-black is going to be the solution for. I made a joke that, if someone complained that they had a toothache, a divester would lean over and say, that they have some great white dentists that could help you out. Like that's just what's always on their mind. So, it's a good conversation. Why don't they just divest? I think it's because there's something else going on there. The divestment's just a mirage. It's something else. It's almost, and in some sick ways, it's their love language. Some people have some very disturbing ways of communicating love, but just my 2 cents and observations.
No, I hear what you're saying. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspective. Maybe eventually I will actually get a divester to come on and share hers, because it'd be great to hear it from the horse's mouth. I reached out to a few divestors. I haven't heard back yet. Maybe I'll keep on trying.
Have you considered reaching out to the black male divestors?
That may, maybe that'll be the best way to do it. No, I have not. I haven't listened to black male divestors yet.
If the black male divestors are all about black women empowerment, they shouldn't deny you.
Okay. No. I may consider that. That might be my way in, because like I said, I got one who was like, "Oh, I'd love to," because I was like, "Hey, let me hear from you. Here are my take on the movement so far, and here's my issue with it. But correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you can explain something to me that I'm missing. Maybe you can help me understand." So she was all down for it until she found out we were actually supposed to have a live conversation. She's like, "No, I don't want to have a conversation. I just want to email you." And I'm like, "Okay, well, okay, it's fine." So maybe I'll go that route and see if I actually get any luck.
All right. Well, love the stream.
Awesome. Well, thanks for calling in.
All right. Good night.
Okay. Good night. Okay. So maybe I'll try that, y'all. But I mean, if you guys know of any person, male or female, who you think would be willing to talk about this, I am all ears. I have shared my particular concerns, my thoughts on the matter, but like I said, I'm not an expert on this, so I'm happy to learn. At the end of the day, though, I do think that we should not promote anything that's going to lead women to make decisions that's going to be harmful. And you ladies, especially you lovely ladies, if you believe that just by seeking to marry non-black men, you're going to expand your options, that's not true. Just statistically, it's not. If that does happen to you, okay, great. You're a minority, just generally speaking. Secondly, if you actually do end up marrying out, don't do it and hate on people who look like you, because that's going to be kind of encouraging the problem. You know what I mean? And lastly, you should probably ask yourself, more importantly, if you're consistently having the same trash or bad scenarios, you know, dating, relationship scenarios, whatever, who's the common denominator in this situation? If you find yourself in any 12-step program or any healing kind of program or anything, they kind of ask you those kinds of questions. If you're in your life, you are seeing the same kind of drama wherever you go, what is the common denominator in that? Who was the common denominator in that? And that's not, you know, that's not being asked so that you can beat yourself up, but it's because at a certain point you have to look in the mirror and make sure that you are facing your truth, right? Facing what's going on in your life versus running away from it. And I think far too many of us run away from what's in front of us, and that kind of keeps us going in circles or just keeps on talking about things that aren't going to lead to any fruit. The reality is most women aren't going to be able to divest. So why hold on to something that is not really leading to results when in reality, I think personally, it is a mirage. It's a mirage for maybe some deeper issues. It could be self-hatred. It could be really deep hurt or pain, frustration. It could just be ignorant. Who knows? I think it's a mirage, me personally, right? But I could be wrong. If I am, y'all let me know. Let me know if there's somebody else out there you think who would be willing to discuss this. I'm all ears. Anyways, I appreciate you, Hakeem. See, talking about divestment is the most amount of attention those type of Black women have gotten. If you starve them of the attention they desire, they just fade. You know, I will say I have heard that before, that some women just want attention, and that is actually why they will push certain things. They will say certain ideas that they know for sure ain't true, or they know are going to create a stir because they want the attention, and without the attention, they starve. Is that what this is all about? I don't know. Could be. Anyways, real quick before I close this out, you guys, I'm so excited. Tomorrow I'm going to be interviewing Philip Scott. We're going to be doing an interview about one of those Black men building interview, right? I've talked to you guys about how we're going to continue to highlight the different things happening in the Black community and the different men in particular who are doing things in the Black community to help improve it. So I'm going to be interviewing him tomorrow. I was introduced to him maybe like about a month ago, actually, when he picked up one of my videos. And he has built a really successful online business and has done a few different business ventures. And in many ways has been able to pour back into the Black community and Black people all around. I know he has different businesses out in Africa and different things that he's doing. So it'll be interesting to hear his perspective and just the different ways that he's tried to make an impact. So if you're around, definitely stay tuned. Also, the following day, I'm going to be having a conversation with the lovely Miss Jessica X. We will be talking about colorism, featureism, and texturism. So again, if you guys are around, stay tuned. Hit the notification button, and we will talk later. Peace out.